buckle and you push it open. Even the windscreen wipers can be operated manually. It doesn't go very fast. It doesn't go anywhere in a particularly straight line, and this is quite a good one steering wise, and it's still a little bit vague. Tyres, being sand tyres in this case, they don't grip the road all that well. It's accelerated by pretty much anything you can buy, but it goes anywhere. And I was thinking, for me, there's a bit of a personal story with Land Rovers. Particularly reminded my Cub Scout leader had one when I was a kid. That was a 19 hardtop, sort of back in the late 80s, early 90s. Went on camping trips and things in that. My father was an Land Rover salesman. They occasionally had Land Rovers at the dealership where he worked. I remember seeing them. They actually had one of the CWK Y110 station wagons, one of the very first. It was a white station wagon that they used at the dealership. I think delivering and collecting cars and a big trailer behind it. But of course, as I've got older, Land Rovers have kind of gone a little bit into the background now. But certainly series Land Rovers are not as common as they used to be. They're a long, long way from anything you can go out and buy today. They're slow. I mean, I'm here, I'm just pooping along at 40. It's a quiet country road. It will do a lot more. But there's something to it, I think, in, my job, like most people's, it's iPads and apps. Everything's artificial and electronic. Social media content, it's all ChatGPT and AI generated. And there's something about escaping that. So I think with a Land Rover, an older Land Rover, certainly you've got that. The new Defender, it's a big infotainment screen which you get in everything now. And it's all very nice, but is that still going to be functioning in 30 years' time? I kind of doubt it. With this, I don't even have a fully synchronous gearbox. You have to be able to double declutch to drive this. It isn't fast. You've got to plan your routes. You've got to think about what gear you're in. You've got to think about your road positioning. It requires input. You can't just be a steering wheel attendant for this. Doesn't really have any features. It's got a heater. That's it, and that. It does a little bit, but it doesn't do much. And there's just there is something about this as a bit of an escape from everything going on. It's we've got a Porsche run going on. It's like time travel because this Analogue, sort of 1959 2-litre diesel Series 2. She's currently doing the NC 500 in February, in the cold, and it's very inspiring. It reminds me of Barbara Toy, who famously did a lot of exploration in the sort of 50s and 60s in Land Rovers, basically solo. I've read a couple of her books as well. Another horse there. See that? That's even more old school, riding a horse. That's like the next step down from a Land Rover. I think this is part of the appeal with this, is that I can, currently I'm just going to the woods to go for a walk, have a flask of coffee, some biscuits, you know. But you can think with this, yeah, I could, in theory at least, jump in this and go drive to Africa. I could go drive to the Alps, I could go drive to the Arctic Circle. That's another thing I'd really like to do, is take a Land Rover across Norway or up Norway. I'd love to go to Iceland, and that's, you know, Land Rovers are, well, I mean, they've been doing this for decades, it's what they were known for. So yeah, I think part of it, it's a bit of a dropping out of the system as it is, which is really fast-paced, really high pressure, all electronic, everything's artificial, but like this feels real, you know. It's metal, it's nuts and bolts, it's petrol, it's points and a distributor, it's levers, it's switches. I mean, I actually look at, I have an interest in cars generally. I don't think there's anything on the market today that I would want to own. There are some cars I think they're cool, maybe how they've been styled or the nostalgia that they evoke. Take the new electric Renault 5, for example. Really got the nostalgia going on there with the original, you know, it kind of captures it quite well. Ford have done it with the Bronco, there's the Fiat 500, which is everywhere. But the thing is with those vehicles, they're visual homages, you know, they're not, technologically they're completely different. And you've still got all the bells and whistles going off all the time. It's nice to not have that. It's a different pace of life. I find like time passes differently when I'm driving this, spending time in this. I'm not worrying how many hours are passing. It's just, you know, go where I need to go. Ultimately, they're one of those. I think you need to get it or you don't. I think for a lot of people driving, you know, there's an obsession with speed. And that seems to be getting all the more prevalent. I'm not really interested in that. It's quite nice to not have to rush. But of course, yeah, a lot of people, they don't get it. They want their comforts, they want their quiet, that's what they're used to. And I think before you've ever known these modern cars, then yeah, this is probably a bit of a culture shock. Of course, I've owned Land Rovers ever since I could drive. My first car was a short wheelbase Series 3. Then got the 1-tonner. Obviously the Defender as well. Which, I mean, even the Defender, you know, that's still pretty analog compared to a lot of things. Of course, another nice feature or aspect is most stuff I can fix myself. I